So when I was in the early 90s, mid 90s, I was at KPMG with Bai's father-in-law as my boss's boss. And I went to manager school in Montvale, New Jersey, and they showed a video. And the video was of a tennis pro, and the people, the students, there were 3 students, they did not know they were being filmed. And so they start off, and let's just warm up. And these people are spraying balls everywhere. I think maybe 1 out of 10 hit the court. And the pro brings them in and says, okay, here's what I want you to do. Just listen to my words as I feed you balls. That's all I want you to do. So he starts feeding balls, and he starts talking to them. And he's like, hey, what do you notice about the ball? And they're like, well, it's green. Okay, good. What do you notice about what's on the ball? Well, there's a little bit of fuzz. There's a logo. Oh, good. What else? Well, it's spinning. Long story less long, these balls start going in the court. And at the beginning, he said, hey, what's your goal today? And they were like, man, if I could get 10 out of 20 in the court, it'd be awesome. So you're watching, and they don't know they're being filmed. And he stops and he goes, how many do you think you just got in? And they're like, I don't know, 3 or 4. And he goes, you just got 15 balls in a row in the court. And it was all, that happened because of focus. Okay, and we're going to get to focus in a second, which is awesome about what Maddie did about Mary. We're going to get there in a second, but we're going to do a little review first. So hang with me. The question is, what's the point? Let's go to the first slide. Oh, I control it. How about that? Here we go.
And else you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
Favorite movies of all time. Scotty Scheffler. Everybody know who Scotty Scheffler is? Scotty Scheffler's career accomplishments. He's 29 years old. He's won $194 million in career earnings. That's exclusive of sponsorships, etc. He's number 4 in earnings rank all time. He spent 150 weeks at number 1. He's won 4 majors, and which basically, in terms of time as a pro, is the same as Tiger Woods. And of course, he went to Texas. And so you have a guy here who has pretty much, well, I won't even say pretty much, has conquered his profession, and some would say has conquered life at 29 years old.
This is not
and here's what he says about it.
Life. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of like the deepest, places of your heart. I think it's kind of funny. I think, I think I said something after the Byron this year about like, it feels like you work your whole life to celebrate winning a tournament for like a few minutes. It only lasts a few minutes, that kind of euphoric feeling. And to win the Byron Nelson Championship at home, I literally worked my entire life to become good at golf, to have an opportunity to win that tournament. And you win it, you celebrate, get to hug my family, my sister's there. It's such an amazing moment. And then it's like, okay, now what are we going to eat for dinner? Life goes on. Is it great to be able to win tournaments and to accomplish the things I have in the game of golf? Yeah. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes just to think about, because it's literally worked my entire life to become good at this sport, and to have that kind of sense of accomplishment, I think is a pretty cool feeling. To get to live out your dreams is very special. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not out here to inspire the next generation of golfers. I'm not here to inspire somebody else to be the best player in the world, because what's the point? This is not a fulfilling life. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of like the deepest, places of your heart. There's a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life, and then you get there and all of a sudden you get to number one in the world, and then they're like, what's the point? And I really do believe that, because what is the point? You're like, why do I want to win this tournament so bad? That's something that I wrestle with on a daily basis. It's like showing up at the Masters every year. It's like, why do I want to win this golf tournament so badly? Why do I want to win the Open Championship so badly? I don't know, because if I win, it's going to be awesome for about 2 minutes. And then we're going to get to the next week, and it's going to be like, hey, you won 2 majors this year. How important is it for you to win the FedEx Cup playoffs? And it's just like, we're back here again, So we really do. We work so hard for such little moments, and I'm kind of a sicko. I love putting in the work. I love being able to practice. I love getting out to live out my dreams. But at the end of the day, sometimes I just don't understand the point.
Did you guys notice how many times Scotty used the word love? Right? So Scotty, oddly enough, was not the first guy to stumble upon this feeling or the way this looks or feels. Arguably, the first guy was King Solomon. In our men's small group, we just finished going through the book of Ecclesiastes, and it starts this way. Vanity, the word there is hebel, which is like a breath. Just a fleeting wisp, if you will. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher, Solomon. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does a man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? This is not what Scotty is talking about, is not new. Why? But it is very, very wise. And Scotty has gotten there and is in a very, very similar way to Solomon, right? Solomon had it all. Wealth, power, women, the whole deal. He had it all, and when he got there, this is what he realized in his wisdom. So what, I want to focus in on, what we spend the majority of the time. And now we're in a little bit of review, okay? David and I talked about this. Mostly David. I'm just the understudy. I'm the color guy, as Aaron says. I just sit there and marvel at his wisdom. But we covered this a few weeks ago. It's this idea that the work we do, when you take a look at the first question in the Westminster Catechism, right? What is man's chief end? Man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. How do we glorify God? Right? And forever, I thought that the way we glorify God in our work was at the water cooler, we share the gospel with someone. Okay, that's what I thought, and I failed miserably at it. And what I've learned since then is that the way we glorify God is actually through our work. We are responsive to His creating us in what we do. And if Scotty were here right now, that's what I'd tell him. I'd tell him, you are glorifying God in playing golf. People see you, and they see how amazing you are at it, and they see God's glory. And so Calvin said, the idea of a calling or vocation is first and foremost about being called by God to serve Him within His world. Diligence, excellence, and dedication in one's everyday life are a proper response to God's love for us. Scotty, playing golf and doing it well is a proper response to God. Parable of the talents. God expects and commands His servants to do more than passively preserve what has been entrusted to us. He expects us to generate a return by using our talents toward productive ends. N.T. Wright would argue that because God's purpose and plan ultimately is to redeem all of creation, everything we do as believers is cooperating and participating with Him in the redemption of the earth. Everything you do in your job. So we cooperate and participate with God in His redemptive activity in the cosmos. For God so loved the world there, the Greek is cosmos, all of creation, right? That's kind of the proper view of work. And we talked about how the idea is we want to bring, there's a lot of stuff we could talk about why this is. It's a lot of history, and you'd be surprised at how deeply it's infected our world. But we've been trained, as Morpheus said, we've been enslaved by this idea that the secular life, your work life, is separate from the spiritual life. Okay, I have bought into this idea, hook, line, and sinker. And a good example of that is what I just told you. Right, the way I represent or worship God in the workplace is by talking about Jesus, which, by the way, isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and you certainly can glorify God by doing that, but having a Bible or a prayer book on my desk so that people can see and all that, and that's all good. That's all good stuff. But the fact is that the secular life and the spiritual or worship life are the same. They exist together. There is no place in your life that Jesus Christ isn't. There's no place. In the workplace, in everything you do, he's there. When Scotty is out there just killing it on the golf course, our Lord is there with him, and he is glorifying him and doing what he does. And that's what you do every day. So, but the question is, you're like, okay, Drew, this is right, rah, rah, rah. How do we do that? How do we actually turn our life? How do I turn my life in my office and what I do? How do I, when I'm writing an email, how do I somehow make that a part of worship? Right? So that's what we're going to talk about. How do we integrate our spiritual lives, which we'll call worship, into our secular lives? So, this guy, St. Augustine, around 400 AD, has probably had the biggest influence on the Western church other than probably Paul and Jesus Christ, arguably. And he's an amazing, amazing guy. And he wrote a lot of books. But his number one thesis is, if I had to boil it all down, his number one thesis is that we are lovers first. And that's why I asked you to think about what Scotty said. I love to play golf. I love. He mentioned love 3 or 4 times in that last end. And Augustine would go, that's what I'm talking about. Here's what he says. But living a just and holy life requires one to be capable of an objective and impartial evaluation of things, to love things, that is to say, in the right order, so that you do not love what is not to be loved, or fail to love what is to be loved, or have a greater love what should be loved less, or an equal love for things that should be loved less or more, or a lesser or greater love for things that should be loved equally. And then he says, for there is a joy that is given to those who do not love you, God, but only to those who love you, talking about God, for your own sake. You, God, yourself, are their joy. Happiness is to rejoice in you, for you, and because of you. This is happiness, and there is no other. Those who think that there is another kind of happiness look for joy elsewhere, but theirs is not true joy. So what Augustine is saying is, and what Scotty is telling you is, if and when you get to the top of the mountain, if God is not number one, you're going to end up in the same place that he's talking about and that Solomon did. It's meaningless. It's meaningless. That's what, and so Augustine would argue that what we tend to do as lovers is we end up loving all sorts of things. Our job, our phones, our family, things, stuff, all sorts of things we end up loving. And none of those things that I mentioned, sex, none of those things is bad or evil. In fact, all of those things are gifts from God. The problem comes, what Augustine would say is when we put those things at the top of the list, when we focus on things that are not him. And they become, what Keller would argue, they become little g gods. And what Tim Keller says is that little g gods, anything that is not capital G God, the arrows suck out. They keep asking more and more of you. And you give more and more and get less and less. Okay, so you're sitting there and you're, whatever it is, and of course the word, the Christian word for that is idolatry. Mr. Talashay, thank you. Right? That's idolatry. It's when we put anything above where God should be. And so what Augustine would argue is that the right order is God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, number one. We focus on him. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. And then live your life. Live your life. Go to work. Glorify God in your work. And everybody here who's been in Houston Fellows, you guys have heard this many times already. But this is what Augustine and the fathers of the church, and in fact our Reformed tradition, our Roman Catholic brothers and sisters, everybody agrees on. Nobody in Christendom disagrees with this or Augustine. God comes first. We focus on him. He enables us and fills us, so his arrow actually points into us, and instead of taking stuff out, he fills us up with his Holy Spirit. That gives us the power to love others as ourselves. Okay, great. We get all this. We've heard all this before. How do we actually do it?
I've decided. I'm going back to China. The missionary service have accepted me.
Oh, I'm so pleased.
But I've got a lot of running to do first. Jenny, you've got to understand. I believe that God made me for a purpose. For China. But he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. To give it up would be to hold him in contempt. You were right. It's not just fun. To win is to honor him. Jenny.
To win is to honor him. To win. And so this is Eric Little. That's his sister, who desperately wanted him to accompany her to China to be a missionary, which he ultimately did. But before he did that, he realized he had to run for his country in the Olympics. And his sister was saying, that's folly. That's not what God's plan is. You are not glorifying God by going and running in some silly race. We have souls to save. And what Eric Little there says is, he did make me to go to, my purpose is to go to China, but he also made me fast. And I can glorify God on the racetrack. And you can glorify God in what you do. And so how do we do that? How do we worship and honor him as number one in our daily lives? How do we do that? Right? Because you're like, I go to work every day, I write stupid emails, I go to dumb meetings. How on earth is that doing what Eric Little did? Okay, now, and I can already feel Bai's eye roll, so I'm not going to look at him. But for literally thousands of years, the way the church and Christians have the manner they've used to try and bring the secular life and the worship life together is something called liturgy. Latos is public and ergos is work. So public work is the word form. And the formal definition is a form or formulary according to which public religious worship, especially Christian worship, is conducted. James Smith wrote the seminal work on this idea, certainly lately, called You Are What You Love. And he says, our day-to-day practices need to extend and amplify the formative power of our weekly worship practices by weaving them into our everyday liturgies. Okay, now some of you guys are sitting there, or maybe all of you are sitting there going, whoa, this is like really churchy, right? Like this is scary. This is the whole reason, I kind of started going to a non-denom when I was in college because all the churchy liturgy stuff. Nobody does liturgy. Really? Here's a liturgy. You guys probably can't read this, but here's what it says. I'll step down here. Oh man, that's hard. Welcome to Minute Maid Park. Presentation of the colors. Please rise. Song, national anthem. Ceremonial first pitch and play ball. Serving and partaking of the elements. Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jacks, beer. Play 6.5 innings of baseball. Song, Take Me Out to the Ballpark, at which you should stand if you're able. The stars are bright. Sweet Caroline. Has anybody been to Fenway Park? I mean, is that not all? I love our Stars at Night, but Sweet Caroline and Fenway is pretty awesome. Play 2.5 innings of baseball, closing fireworks, and farewell. Can you imagine what would happen if someone walked into the park one day and said, you know what? Let's blow off the national anthem. There would be, it'd be a riot, right? You can't do that. For 200 years, the national anthem has been sung at the beginning of baseball games. The doxology has been sung in worship services for 350 years. The Apostles' Creed has been said as one in worship services for 2,000 years. The Nicene Creed from 350 to 375 AD. 1,700 years. Okay, we've been doing this for 200. And it was like pulling teeth to get a pitch clock in. All right? So my point in saying this is liturgy is part of everything you do. If you've ever been, I was talking with Brett the other day, if you've ever been to a non-Christian worship service, non-Christian marriage. If you've ever been to a non-Christian marriage, it's fascinating, right? We don't believe in Jesus. We don't believe in any religion. It's all hocus pocus. It's all made up. And you walk in, and they hand you an order of worship. Why? Why do they hand you an order of worship? They don't call it that, of course. It's probably just a agenda. Thank you. It's an agenda, right? They hand you an agenda. Why? Why hand you an agenda? Because the way we as human beings make things important and elevate things is through liturgy. That's the way we do it. And that's the way the church has done it. And my argument is one of the ways that you can incorporate, you can make, just like that ball, you can make God number one, right? If you can make God number one in your focus, the rest is going to happen in your work. You don't have to sit there at your desk and go, I'm a terrible Christian because right now somehow I should be incorporating my faith in this email. You are. If he's number one, it's happening. Let him do it. It's going to happen. You're going to end up at the water cooler and someone's going to go, bro, why are you like the way you are at work? This is terrible. And that's your opportunity. That's what's going to happen. So what are ways we can incorporate, what liturgy should we incorporate in our lives to help us bring worship and work together? So the number one golfer in the world is still using, if you go right now to Golf Galaxy, there is that grip trainer that it's a grip that you can put on an old club. It's $2 that you put on an old club. The number one golfer in the world is still using that grip trainer. He's also using alignment sticks, okay? I was going to get his practice plan out for you guys, but what you will see in that practice plan is every time he goes out to, all you see on TV is him winning golf tournaments, right? And kissing his wife and kids. That's what you see. What you don't see is all the boring, repetitive stuff he does to get to that point, okay? How do we replicate that to make God the focus? Okay, so I'm going to tell you what helps me. So I've told you all about this book. So this book is by Tim Keller, The Songs of Jesus. It has a psalm, a piece of a psalm, a prayer, and a short discussion for every day of the year. Really good. This book is called The Valley of Vision. This is a series of prayers. You know, praying, and we'll talk about this in meditation. You know, I would sit there and I'd sit there and I'd go, what am I supposed to do? I say the same thing over and over again. God, thank you for this day. And then I was like, okay, I got to do the acts: adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplication. And it was challenging. And so this book called The Valley of Vision, and there's a ton like it, but this is a book of Puritan prayers. But what's really good about it, at the end, it has a week of shared prayers. And it's got a prayer for every day, morning and evening of the week. Really, really helpful stuff. This book is fantastic. It's called Every Moment Holy. And it literally has a liturgy for example, my favorite one in here that we've started doing at dinner is a liturgy for feasting with friends. And it starts, the leader says, the celebrant says, "To gather joyfully is indeed a serious affair, for feasting and all enjoyments gratefully taken are, at their heart, acts of war." Really good stuff. But this also has morning liturgies for the morning and the evening and midday. So what's great about that is, in the morning I find a place, which, by the way, the locations, depending on the weather or whatever, I'll go outside and I'll sit down and I'll just walk through this liturgy. And what it does is, without me having to go, what should I do? It starts to put me in a position of putting him number one, right? It's just like a grip trainer or a alignment stick or whatever sport you play. You know what I'm talking about. You've got the same sort of help training aids, ball machine, whatever. That's what these liturgies are. And then, of course, you've got the Holy Bible, as my Aggie friends would say, Holy Bible, right? So that's the number one things. But then, so you have these training aids. And then what's really been helpful for me is this idea of meditation. And yes, our Buddhist friends have gotten a lot of press lately for a long time, for about being the kings of meditation. David was meditating long before Buddha kind of started thinking about it. I meditate on your precepts and consider your ways, from Psalms. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight. Finally, and this is what Paul does is put the cookies on the lower shelf. Finally, brothers, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's any praise, think, dwell, meditate on these things. So I didn't know how to meditate, and luckily, there's a bunch of great apps for that. There's an app called Headspace, Hallow, Abide, and you put your earphones in, and they will start to walk you through what meditation is. And you can start with a psalm, the classic place, and Keller gives you a bunch, daily things, and you can start to practice this idea of meditation. And what happens is you're able, as Morpheus would say, to unlock your mind. You can get into a place, this sounds really crazy, but it's true. You can get into a place where you can start to listen to God, and your relationship becomes more and more intimate. And slowly but surely, he starts to be elevated to, as Pastor Rolf said in his sermon, where when stuff invades you, you can't help the smell. People just notice it. It's exactly like perfume, right? People notice that when something's elevated and it becomes that important. You say, this is weird, meditation, crazy stuff. What I would say is try it. Try these things. You can get on Kindle. You can get this stuff for nothing, very, very cheaply. You say, I'm doing it wrong. I can't slow down. I can't focus. I say same things over and over again. It's Monday. My wife's mad at me because I stole all the covers, which I did. And here's what Paul, it's just awesome. I mean, the way he can speak to us, the way God speaks to us through his words is remarkable. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we don't know how to pray as we ought. We don't know how to meditate. But the Spirit himself intercedes for us with sighs too deep for words. And he who searches the hearts of men knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints, for you, according to the will of God. You've just got to put yourself in a position where this can happen. So I said, I wonder what a schedule looks like. I was like, time, talent, treasure. Time, talent, treasure. The biblical sort of recommendation or standard is a tithe, 10%. 10%. So I sat down with Excel and I said, okay, you got 24 hours in the day. You got to sleep, right? You got to eat, 3 hours for eating. Working 8 hours. I'm trying to solve for how much time we should spend on my idea here. Available hour, discretionary hours, 5 hours, 300 minutes, 10%, 30 minutes. 30 minutes, right? That'd be one way to look at this. And I was pretty happy with myself. I was like, 30 minutes? I can knock out 30 minutes. And I start looking at this time budget, and I was like, interesting that God, no kidding, is literally, and I did this at the end, after I kind of put everything together, I did this little thing because I was like, I'm gonna show these guys like how you can go through and do this. And I go, okay, my entire talk is about putting God at the top, and I have literally put him at the very bottom of my time budget. I mean, it could not, I'm telling you guys, I told my small group, didn't I? I told you guys that this is exactly what happened. It's true. It totally is true. So then I go, you know what? Let's follow Augustine's recommendation. And what if we flip this on its head? 24 hours. Let's just say I give 1 hour to the man. 1 hour of focus, of meditation, of time with him, putting myself in a posture where I can elevate him to my number one focus, where I start noticing the spin on the ball. What's the logo, right? Where I can start putting balls into the court. I give him an hour. An hour is 4%. 4% of our time. Less sleep, less eat, less work. Still got 4 hours. I still got 4 hours, right? And you say, Drew, man, an hour? I mean, what do you want me to be, a monk? You wake up, 15 minutes. Lunch. You guys all have jobs where you can go back, you can shut your door, you can spend 15 minutes in a liturgy, right? For dinner, 15 minutes. Before you go to bed, 15 minutes. Maybe you start out at just 15 minutes. Maybe you already do 15 minutes. Look at the liturgies that you have. Look at the habits that you have. What do you do to put God as number one? Because his argument, Augustine's argument, is that if all we have to do is focus on him. Everything else will happen because of his power. What are you going to do? The world is going to tell you that church and worship stays here. Worship does not go out there, because what are you going to do? You're going to sing the doxology in your office? No. And you aren't. What you're going to do is you're going to live your life, but with him as your main focus. So what are you going to do? And we'll finish with my friend.
You take the
Morpheus.
blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Take the red pill.